This is Mike Williams of World Mentoring Academy, an educational program on Channel 32, Pasadena. And we're here with an astronaut, former astronaut, who's involved very heavily in a commercial space program, correct?
That's right.
And can you tell us a little about the path that you took to get to space?
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey, and I was a kid that I wouldn't have told you if you asked me when I was a kid I was dreaming about or that I was going to grow up to be an astronaut. But I was always interested in math and science, and I was always interested in space as well. I just never thought that was within the realm of possibility for me to grow up and become an astronaut. But funny enough, it happened, and that was because when I went off to college, I started doing a lot of things and pursuing my interest in engineering and also flying and other things. I realized that what I was doing was not very different from what other astronauts had done before they were selected, and I figured I would fill out the paperwork and give it a shot, and it worked.
So basically you filled out paper at NASA, and it was like a website type thing?
No, this was before the web, actually. This was 1997, so it was a piece of paper that we filled out, and it was a standard form for federal government employment. It's actually the same application you fill out if you want to be a postal worker.
No kidding. So you could have been a postal worker, maybe gone postal.
Well, what you do is in block number 12, instead of writing postal worker, you write astronaut.
Wow, just above astronaut, right? Wow, that's too trippy. So do you happen to know what the process is now to get in commercial programs, for instance? How do you select various different people to do missions?
Well, really, our customer is NASA, and so the people that we're flying in our vehicle are NASA astronauts. So we're not selecting our own astronauts. We don't have our own astronaut corps at SpaceX. We're going to fly our government customers. Okay.
Then the question I had to ask is, in the future, like the Apollo missions were primarily pilots with engineering backgrounds, and then the space shuttle you had teachers. Who are the future pioneers do you think going to be? Miners, doctors, athletes, who knows?
Yeah, so both during Apollo was all test pilots, and then and near the end of the Apollo program, we expanded it out to scientists. We flew a Caltech scientist, actually, a geologist, and so. So there were the beginnings of that, and then in shuttle program, we did fly a couple teachers, but by and large, it was still mostly military test pilots, military operations folks, and then civilians, scientists, engineers, and medical doctors were the common background for shuttle. Going forward in the future, the people that operate the vehicle are still going to come from that type of an environment, that kind of a background. But we hope that the vehicles we build will be made accessible for, as far as passengers in those vehicles, will be accessible to anybody.
Yeah, did you have to speak Russian to be on the space shuttle? Or I know that they all speak English, but I mean, was it sometimes kind of cool to speak Russian, maybe?
Да, конечно. Ни на борту на шаттла, но международный космический корабль МКС был почти по экране.
Wow, that was pretty impressive. All right, well, you're probably asking for chicken noodle soup or something, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for helping us, and hopefully in the future we might be able to be providing future pioneers. Of World Mentoring Academy, a educational program on Channel 32 Aurora, Pasadena. And we're here together with Tom Jones, who's an astronaut, former astronaut, and actively involved in the space program. And we have a couple of questions we'd like to ask you. One question I have is, for future young kids in middle school and elementary school, maybe even high school, what do you think the career possibilities of, say, potentially in the future?
Yeah, if you're going to be a government explorer, government astronaut, then it's still A to Z, astronomy to zoology. So you can be anything in the engineering and science fields, okay? So civil engineer, mining engineer, aerospace engineer, electrical engineer. On the sciences, it's, again, from veterinarians to astronomers. So you don't really have to choose a specific field that is hooked up with the space program. You can just choose what you do that makes you enthusiastic about science or engineering, and then say, hey, this can apply to your current problems that you have, NASA, let me come and work for you. So I think the breadth of fields that we're going to bring into the space program is still just as wide as it was during the shuttle program. And in fact, with the commercial space industry, you're going to see even jobs in that sector. So you might have adventure tour guides and spaceplane pilots, as well as scientists and engineers.
Also, when it comes to getting after school experience, like being part of an astronomy club or science group or things of that nature, does that in any way lend itself towards future prospects? In other words, developing hobbies.
Of course, and if your hobby has to do with science or engineering, so much the better in terms of your plans for getting into space one day. But the real key is, our country needs scientists and engineers to solve a lot of problems back here on Earth. Some who get trained for the space program will help with those problems, but we need to actually capture the imagination of future engineers and scientists when they're in middle school. You got to hook them then, and we've got to get across the message that it's fun as well as useful and a rewarding career. So if we can have these hobby opportunities, amateur astronomy, robotics, that's a very current theme right now, and maybe even taking on some NASA challenges at the high school and the college level. That's the kind of spur to those future careers that we need. So we can't emphasize going after young scientists and engineers even when they're 10, 12 years old, so we can make sure that they're on the path to get the training they need to help us out in their future professions.
What was your path?
Me, I wanted to be like the Apollo astronauts, like Rusty Schweickart, so I wanted to be a test pilot. So I went to the Air Force Academy, flew in the Air Force for 5 years. Then NASA brought out the shuttle, and that opened it up to scientists and engineers, and I was a great science fan, so I went back to school, got an advanced science degree, and that's how I got into the shuttle program.
Now, I understand that you're involved in some commercial projects dealing with space, yes. Are there any internships or any other types of things, sweeping this, a warehouse, just to get close to look at, or do a tour or a field trip or something of that nature in any of the types of, projects like that?
What I would advise is, find out some company that works in space, for example, like SpaceX here in the LA area, or any of the other aerospace companies, of Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and just go find out about their internship programs. They may not pay for volunteers, but you might get a good summer exposure as an intern, even at the high school level, and that could lead to maybe going on with them professionally later on. So go out and ask people who work in these fields, hey, what do you do? Are there opportunities for me? What would I do as a young person to get more skills and more knowledge about this?
Okay.
Science to me is music. To figure out the schematics of a piano before piano was ever invented took science.
It's probably one of the most important things you'll learn about in school because it's about progression. Science is about the future.
Without science, we would still be cavemen. It's the basics. It's the very basic elements of life.
Everyone in this room is laughing at me because I've got to talk about how cool science is, and that's because I'm a nerd.
To me, science is more about transformation,
experimentation. I was always fascinated, by the way our world was made.
Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen.
I've always been told, stay out of my head, it's a bad neighborhood. But when I do get down, I become a doctor of thinkology. The marbles start turning, and I start seeing shapes and getting a rhythm of things. That's science to me, because somewhere in that goop is creativity.
A lot of people think celebs are exciting. That showbiz is amazing. Showbiz ain't nothing compared to science.
Geeks and nerds are the coolest people on the planet. You dig in your pocket right now and get your iPhone, your BlackBerry. That wasn't made by nobody from the Rolling Stones.
This thing right here doesn't exist without science.
That little rock and roll piece of gear gadget you got in your pocket was made by geeks.
What's up, everybody at US First Robotics? I'm Justin Bieber, and I think that what you guys do is just as cool as what we do in music.
My robot is better than your robot. My robot is
better than your robot.
My robot is better than your robot.
My robot is better than your robot. Any day, all day, every day.
You told me that I'll be making a song on a computer, mixing and mastering, and what would take up 3 blocks of recording is now in a laptop. What? That's science. That rocks.
It's better than your robot.
My robot is better than your robot.
Sorry.
You know who the biggest rock star of all time is? Einstein. You know what I'm saying? Leonardo da Vinci.
Benjamin Banneker.
Science is rock and roll.
For too long, we have put the spotlight on entertainment only. You put a spotlight on these kids who have dedicated themselves in science, mathematics, engineering, robotics, so that my niece and nephew grow up to want to be like them. I love Michael Jordan. I love Kobe Bryant. Not everybody's gonna be a basketball player. There's more jobs around science, mathematics, robotics, and engineering for kids to graduate. So if there's a basketball court in every single elementary school, there needs to be science programs. It has to be a priority. It has to be mandatory.
You know, I think robotics and science is that's the future. That's the future.
Educating our youth, getting them equipped for tomorrow. It's real homeland security. Scientists, mathematicians, engineers, programmers. That is the new rock and roll.
I'm not going to say science is rock and roll, but science rocks.
And if you didn't know, now you know.